Hello! Hope you're having a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening, whichever part of the world you're in. Hi, everybody! So, today is the 4th of July, and I'm trying to lower the music. Where's my book? Oh, here it is. Today is the 4th of July, and I do have plans later, so I will only be reading for about 2 hours. We're currently on chapter 10. I don't know how far we're gonna get. I do have to stop once the clock hits 6, though. But gosh, what? Sorry, I just opened my book and I just realized it's a paperback, but it's like folded so you can like read the summary on the inside. And I just opened it and there's like a little red background with like a bunch of bats on it. I just noticed this right now. Oh man, it's oh geez, it is like really hot today. Oh goodness, it's just been so hot today. Anyway, so yeah, I'll just be reading as much as I can until it hits 6 again, like 2 hours, and then I had to go. But tomorrow's gonna be really fun. I'm gonna be playing Amnesia tomorrow. Like, I am excited, at the same time I'm kind of scared a little bit. I don't know, it's because what was it? The sun doesn't go down for at least like another 4 or 5 hours. And I'm gonna start streaming around the same time tomorrow, so it's gonna be daylight. Oh, actually, why don't... Oh, that light's not even on. It's a skylight. I thought the light of the room was on, but no, it's a skylight. So it's very bright. It's ridiculously hot. Yeah, it is, Cat. Hi, welcome. Glad you made it. I saw your quote retweet. Hope you finished your work. If not, you can listen while trying to finish. I give you props for doing so. It's hard for me to do that. Unless it's music, then I can do work and listen to music. Unless it requires my memorization, then I cannot listen to music. But yeah, it is really hot. Like, oh my goodness. Anyways, and I have the AC on, don't get me wrong. It's just, man, it's hot. It's really hot. And I almost got distracted. Oh, the AC's turning on, thank goodness. I almost got distracted a little bit right now because I've been trying to read Ascendance of a Bookworm, so I've been buying the ebooks because I finished all the paperbacks that are out right now, so I've been getting the ebooks. I still have, I think I have like 3 more books to go before the next one comes out in August. It looks like they come out every other month. But I've been speed reading it, and usually when I like start binge reading, it's really hard for me to do other things. Like the new anime season started. I haven't started anything except like one of them, which was the Idol one, which was as cute and quirky as I expected it to be. That's the only one I saw, though. I haven't continued. I did finish. I'm ready for a sandwich and story time. Yeah, get a sandwich. I just had some chicken tacos right now with some avocado, so that was pretty good. And my water, of course, and some horchata. I got some pistachio fresca, so that was good. I have my water with me now because I want to enjoy my pistachio. But yeah, I guess I will go ahead and try and dive right into it. But yeah, I got distracted. I was reading Ascent of a Bookworm, and then the new updates coming out for Genshin, and then like that event in Omnioji, and then there's that other event and that other game. There's just a bunch of stuff. Bunch of stuff I need to read, bunch of stuff I need to edit. I said I was gonna make a highlight reel, but good evening, I'm about to leave for... Hi Benz, I hope you have a good day at work. Thanks for saying hi. Welcome. But what was it? I got distracted. Yeah, I have a lot of stuff to do. I know I said I was gonna make a highlight reel. I just haven't gotten around to it. I had to sit there and edit through quite a bit of footage and then decide what I want to include and then wait for the rendering. It's just I know it wouldn't take me that long. I just need to actually sit down and do it. Oh goodness. I'll try and get it done soon. Soon. We shall see. But as of today, not today. Today we're just gonna read Dracula. We're on chapter 10 right now, so we'll see how far I can get. And we're still not even halfway through the book, which is insane. I guess because of the font, it's bigger, and also the spacing is pretty nice. Because it's in letter format. So, but yeah, we're not halfway through, and I guess fortunately. I do, but we're set. Once I do finish Dracula, I have a ton of classic books that are in the public domain that I will be reading afterwards. I'm thinking I'm gonna do Frankenstein after this. I hope I remember where the book is. I think I know where it is. I just haven't checked that place again since last time, but I'm pretty sure it's in there. But yeah, I plan to do Frankenstein after this. And I have a bunch of other stuff too. One of the ones I want to do is Anne of Green Gables, but apparently 2 out of the 8 are not in public domain, so I can't start reading that. It was published out of order too. I think it was what was it? Volume 4 and 6. I can't remember which ones, but it's like near the end. Those 2 are not in public domain. The rest of it is, but those 2 aren't, so I would have to wait for that one. But yeah. Anyways, let's go ahead and dive right in. Oh, let me turn off the music. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I love Frankie. Frankie, yeah. Frankenstein. Okay, let's see. Here's my bookmark. Here it is. Alright. Again, we are in chapter 10. And who is this? Letter, Dr. Seward to honored Arthur Holmwood. Holmwood is the husband of... I already forgot the woman. That's why... Oh, is it Lucy? Yeah, Lucy. I'm sorry. Okay, Mina is Jonathan Harker's wife because they got married. And then Lucy is Mina's friend. And she's currently married to this guy named Arthur Holmwood. Okay. So 6th of September. And we're Dr. Seward. I think he's the one that had like the mad guy that keeps eating animals and stuff. Yeah, right? I think that was him. It's been a bit. Let's see. Okay, so 6th of September. In case anyone hears anything in the background, I completely forgot that like 4th of July was technically a holiday. Like I knew it was a holiday, but like it's a holiday for everybody. So everybody's over right now. Lena's entertaining them, so but I'm just gonna be reading for now and then go attend to those plans. But yeah, if you hear anything, that's them. Anyways, 6th of September. My dear Art, my news today is not so good. Lucy this morning had gone back a bit. There's, however, one good thing which has arisen from it. Mrs. Westenra was naturally anxious concerning Lucy and has consulted me professionally about her. I took advantage of the opportunity and told her that my old master Van Helsing, the great specialist, was coming to stay with me and that I would put her in charge conjointly with myself. So now we can come and go without alarming her unduly, for a shock to her would mean sudden death, and this, in Lucy's weak condition, might be disastrous for her. We are hedged and with difficulties, all of us, my poor fellow, but please God, we shall come through them all right. If any need, I shall write, so that if you do not hear from me, take it for granted that I am simply waiting for news. In haste. Yours ever, John Seward. Okay, that's good. So the mom won't be like too freaked out. Okay. Dr. Seward's diary. I look forward to this guy's diaries. It's always so quirky. He's like, I want to find out more, but like ethically I can't. I was like, yeah. Okay, Dr. Seward's diary. 7th of September. The first thing Van Helsing said to me when we met at Liverpool Street was, have you said anything to your young friend, the lover of her? To our young friend, the lover of her. No, I said. I waited till I had seen you. As I said in my telegram, I wrote him a letter simply telling him that you were coming, as Miss Westenra was not so well, and that I should let him know if need be. Right, my friend, he said. Quite right. Better he not know as yet. Perhaps he will never know. I pray so, but if be needed, then we shall know all. He's like, hey, just don't tell him. Don't tell him. And my good friend John, let me caution you, you deal with the madmen. All men are mad in some way or the other. And inasmuch as you deal discreetly with your madmen, so deal with God's madmen to the rest of the world. You tell not your madmen what you do, nor why you do it. You tell them not what you think. So you shall keep knowledge in its place where it may rest, where it may gather its kind around it and breed. Around it and breed. Blah, blah, blah. You and I shall keep as yet what we know here and here. He touched me on the heart and on the forehead, and then touched himself the same way. I have for myself thoughts at the present. Later I shall unfold to you. Why not now? I asked. It may do some good. We may arrive at some decision. decision. I said that really weird and I did not want to say it like that. He looked at me and said, "My dear friend John, when the corn is grown, even before it has ripened, while the milk of its mother earth is in him, and the sunshine has not yet begun to paint him in his gold, the husbandman, he pull the ear and rub him between his rough hands, and blow away the green chaff, and say to you, 'Look, he's good corn. He will make good crop when the time comes.'" That made no freaking sense, but okay. Okay, Van Helsing. I did not see the implication, neither did I. And told him so. For reply, he reached over and took my ear in his hand and pulled it playfully, as he used long ago to do at lectures, and said, "The good husbandman," why does he say husbandman? I feel like that's a very strange word. Is that a real word? I feel like it's not a real word. "The good husbandman tell you so then, because he knows not till then, but you do not find the good husbandman dick up his planted corn to see if he grow. That is for the children who play at husbandry, and not for those who take it as of the work of their life. See you now, friend John. I have sown my corn, and nature has her work to do in making it sprout. If he sprout at all, there's some promise, and I wait till his ear begins to swell." He broke off, for he evidently saw that I understood. Then he went on, and very gravely, I still don't get it. I still don't get you. "You were always a careful student, and your casebook was ever more full than the rest. You were only a student then, now you are a master. I trust that good habits will not fail. Remember, my friend, that knowledge is stronger than memory, and we should not trust the weaker. Even if you have not kept the good practice, let me tell you that this case of our dear Miss and one may be, mind I say may be, of such interest to us and others that all the rest may not make him kick the beam, as you people say." Kick the beam? Okay. "Take then good notes of it. Nothing is too small. I counsel you put down in record even your doubts and summarizes. Hereafter it may be of interest to you to see how true you guess. We learn from failure, not from success." Very true. When I described Lucy's symptoms, the same as before, but definitely more marked, he looked very grave, but said nothing. He took with him a bag in which were many instruments and drugs, the ghastly paraphernalia of our beneficial trade. As he once called in one of his lectures, the equipment of a professor of the healing craft. We were shown in. Mrs. Westenra met us. She was alarmed, but not nearly so much as I expected to find her. Nature, in one of her beneficent moods, has ordained that even death has some answer to its own terrors. Here in a case where any shock may prove fatal, matters are so ordered that from some cause or other, the things not personal, well, the terrible change in her daughter to whom she is so attached, do not seem to reach her. It is something like the way Dame Nature gathers round a foreign body an envelope of some incentive tissue which can protect from evil that which would otherwise harm by contact. If this be an ordered selfishness, then we should pause before we condemn anyone from the vice of egoism, for there may be deeper roots for cause than we have knowledge of. I used my knowledge of this phase of spiritual pathology and laid down a rule that she should not be present with Lucy or think of her illness more than absolutely necessary. She assented readily, so readily that I saw again the hand of nature fighting for life. Van Helsing and I were shown up to Lucy's room. If I was shocked when I saw her yesterday, I was horrified when I saw her today. She was ghastly, chalkily pale. The red seemed to have gone even from her lips and gums, and the bones of her face stood out prominently. Her breathing was painful to see or hear. Van Helsing's face grew set as marble, and his eyebrow converged till they almost touched over his nose. Lucy lay motionless and did not seem to have strength to speak. For a while we were all silent. Then Van Helsing beckoned to me, and we went gently out of the room. The instant he had closed the door, and he stepped quickly along the passage to the next door, which was open. Then he pulled me in quickly with him and closed the door. "My God," he said, "this is dreadful. There is no time to be lost. She will die for sheer want of blood to keep the heart's action as it should be. There must be a transfusion of blood at once. Is it you or me?" "I am young and strong, Professor. It must be me." "Then get ready at once. I will bring up my bag, and I am prepared." I went downstairs with him, and as we were going there was a knock at the hall door. When we reached the hall, the maid had just opened the door, and Arthur was stepping quickly in. He rushed up to me, saying in an eager whisper, "Jack, I was so anxious. I read between the lines of your letter and had been in agony. The dad was better, so I ran down here to see for myself. Is not that gentleman Dr. Van Helsing? I am so thankful to you, sir, for coming." When first the professor's eyes had lit up upon him, he had been angry at an interruption at such a time, but now as he took in his stalwart, stalwart proportions and recognized the strong young manhood which seemed to emanate from him. His eyes gleamed. Without a pause, he said to him gravely as he held out his hand, "Sir, you have come in time. You're the lover of our dear miss. She's bad, very, very bad. Nay, my child, do not go like that." For he suddenly grew pale and sat down in a chair, almost fainting. "You are to help her. You cannot do more than any that live, and your courage is your best help." "What can I do?" asked Arthur hoarsely. Oh, husbandman is a farmer, not husbandman is an odd word. Husbandman means farmer? That I have never heard that phrasing. Wow, okay, thank you, Kat, for letting me know. That is an odd word. I didn't know that. Okay. Impressive, okay. "What can I do?" asked Arthur hoarsely. "Tell me, now she'll do it. My life is hers, and I would give the last drop of blood in my body for her." The professor has strongly a humorous side, and I could from all detect a trace of its origin in his answer. "My good sir, I do not ask so much as that. Not the last." "What shall I do?" There was fire in his eyes, and his open nostrils quivered with intent. Van Helsing slapped him on the shoulder. "Come," he said. "You are a man, and a man we want. You are better than me, better than my friend John." Arthur looked bewildered, and Professor went on explaining in a kind way. "Young miss is bad, very bad. She wants blood, and blood she must have or die. My friend John and I have consulted, and we are about to perform what we call transfusion of blood, to transfer from full veins of one to the empty veins which pine for him. John was to give his blood, and he is more young and stronger than me." Here Arthur took my hand and wrung it hard in silence. "But now we are here, you're more than good than us, old or young, who toil much in the world of thought. Our nerves are not as calm, and our blood not so bright than yours." Arthur turned to him and said, "If you only knew how gladly I would die for her, you would understand." He stopped, with a sort of choke in his voice. "Good boy," said Van Helsing, "and then not so far off, you will be happy that you have done all for her you love. Come now, and be silent. You shall kiss her once before it is done, but then you must go, and you must leave at my sign. Say no word to madam, you know how it is with her. There must be no shock. Any knowledge of this would be one. Come." Okay. I think it's from the word husbandry, which is like the technical word for planting, farming, and that sort of thing. Oh. I didn't even know husbandry is also part of farming. Husbandman and husbandry. Part of farming. Okay. I'm learning new stuff. I honestly did not know those words were related to farming. Like, I can't comprehend that they are, but yeah, that does make sense. Thank you for the explanation, Kat. It's making a little bit of sense. I understand why he brought up corn as an analogy. His farmers are linked to corn. It's like a corn farm. Is that what they're called? Wheat fields. Do they have corn farms? I don't know if they do. Okay. We all went up to... I'm sorry, it's just so insanely hot today. I'm like sweating. Oh my goodness. And my AC's on, I swear it is. Okay. Farming is just making me think of like the fields and the hot sun. I have water with me. I should drink it soon, but my throat's fine as of right now. We all went up to Lucy's room. Arthur, by direction, remained outside. Lucy turned her head and looked at us, but said nothing. She was not asleep, but she was simply too weak to make the effort. Her eyes spoke to us, that was all. Van Helsing took some things from his bag and laid them on a little table out of sight. Then he mixed a narcotic, came over to the bed, and said cheerily, "Now, little miss, here is your medicine. Drink it off like a good child. See, I lift you so that swallow it easy." Yes, she had made the effort success. It astonished me how long the drug took to act. This is in fact marked the extent of her weakness. The time seemed endless until sleep began to flicker in her eyelids. At last, however, the narcotic began to manifest its potency, and she fell into a deep sleep. Yes, people grow corn. I grew up out in country. Wow! That's cool. No, I know people grew corn. I was just trying to think, like, was it like a cornfield, or is it... Like, I'm trying to think of cornfields from, like, movies. I haven't seen a cornfield. As I mentioned, I live out in a desert. So we got cacti and tumbleweeds, and there's a mountain. I haven't seen... I've seen, like, orchards, but, like, I haven't seen, like, fields, per se. And any sort of car ride I have taken, I have fallen asleep. So if I pass by a field, I don't know. Most of what I've seen mostly is a ton of desert. And I mean like a ton of desert. Oh, right. When the professor was satisfied, he called Arthur into the room and bade him strip off his coat. Then he added, "You may take that one little kiss while I bring over the table. Friend John, help to me." So neither of us looked as he bent over her. Van Helsing turned to me and said, "He's so young and strong, and of blood so pure that we need not defibrinate it." Defibrinate. The hell does that mean? Is that another word for taint? Is that another word to not taint it? There was swiftness, but with absolute method, Van Helsing performed the operation. As the transfusion went on, something like life seemed to come back to poor Lucy's cheeks, and through Arthur's growing pallor, the joy of his face seemed absolutely to shine. After a bit, I began to grow anxious, for the loss of blood was telling on Arthur, strong man as he was. It gave me an idea of what a terrible strain Lucy's system must have undergone, that what weakened Arthur only partially restored her. But the professor's face was set, and he stood watch in hand, with his eyes fixed now on the patient, now on Arthur. I could hear my own heart beat. Presently, he said in a soft voice, "Do not stir an instant. It is enough. You tend to him. I will look after her." Then, when all was over, I could see how much Arthur was weakened. I dressed the wound and took his arm to bring him away, when Van Helsing spoke without turning around. The man seemed to have eyes in the back of his head. "The brave lover, I think, deserves another kiss, which he shall have presently. Bleh." And as he had now finished his operation, he adjusted the pillow to the patient's head. As he did so, the narrow black velvet band, in which she seemed always to wear around her throat, buckled with an old diamond buckle which her lover had given her, was dragged a little up and showed a red mark on her throat. Arthur did not notice it, but I could hear the deep hiss of indrawn breath, which in one of Van Helsing's ways of betraying emotion. He's like, vampire. Just kidding. I'm really upset that Dracula is like tormenting this woman. Please leave her alone. She's finally happy with Arthur, you know? She's so youthful and friendly, and she's Mina's friend, okay? I don't want anyone to hurt Mina or everyone she loves. She's like super, super nice. He said nothing at the moment, but turned to me, saying, "Now take down our brave young lover, give him of the port wine, and let him lie down a while. He must then go home and rest, sleep much and eat much, that he may be required of what he has so given to his love. He must not stay here. Hold a moment, I may take it, sir, that you are anxious of results. Then bring it with you that in all ways the operation is successful. You have saved her life this time, and you can go home and rest easy in mind that all that can be is. I shall tell her all when she is well. She shall love you none the less for what you have done. Goodbye." When Arthur had gone, I went down to the room. Lucy was sleeping gently, but her breathing was stronger. I could see the counterpane move as her breast heaved. At the bedside sat Van Helsing, looking at her intently. The velvet band around covered the red mark, asked Professor in a whisper, "What do you think of that mark on her throat?" "What do you make of it?" "I have not examined it yet," I answered. And then there proceeded to loose the band. Just over the external jugular vein there is 2 punctures, not large, but not wholesome looking. There was no sign of disease, but the edges were white and worn looking, as if by trituration? That repetition? It at once occurred to me that this wound, or whatever it was, might be the means of what manifest loss of blood. But I banned the idea as soon as form for such a thing cannot be. The whole bed would have been drenched to scarlet with blood, which the girl must have lost to leave such pallor she had before the transfusion. Am I saying that? Is it pallor or pallor? "Well," said Van Helsing. "Well," I said. Said I can make nothing of it. The professor stood up. "I must go back to Amsterdam tonight," he said. "There are books and things there which I want. You must remain here all the night, and you must not let your sight pass from her." "Shall I have a nurse?" I asked. "We are the best nurses, you and I, and you keep watch all night, see that she is well fed, and nothing disturbs her. You must not sleep all the night. Later on we can sleep, you and I. I shall be back as soon as possible, and then we may begin." "May begin?" I said. "What on earth do you mean?" "We shall see," he answered as he hurried out. He came back a moment later and put his head inside the door and said with warning finger held up, Remember, she is your charge. If you leave her and harm befall, you shall not sleep easy hereafter. It's like pal or. Okay, so it's palor. Okay, it is. So not pa, it's pal. Okay, pa. Thank you, cat. Okay, palor. And yes, I know what charge means now. You're charged. It's like the person you're in charge of protecting. I learned that from a sentence of a bookworm. They failed at protecting their charge quite miserably, might I add. Anyways. Oh, my tummy grumbled. Okay, Dr. Seward's diary. Continued. 8th of September. I sat up all night with Lucy. The opiate worked itself off towards dusk, and she waked naturally. She looked a different being from what she had been before the operation. Her spirits even were good, and she was full of happy vivacity, but I could see evidence of the absolute prostration which she had undergone. When I told Miss Westenra that Dr. Van Helsing had directed that I should sit up with her, she almost pooh-poohed the idea, pointing out her daughter renewed strength and excellent spirits. I was firm, however, and made preference to my long vigil. When her maid had prepared her for the night, I came in, having in the meantime had supper, and took a seat by the bedside. She did not know in any way make objection, but looked at me gratefully whenever I caught her eye. After a long spell, she seemed sinking off to sleep, but with an effort seemed to pull herself together and shook it off. It was repeated several times with greater effort, and a shorter pause at the time moved on. It was apparent that she did not want to sleep, so I tackled the subject at once. You do not want to sleep? No, I'm afraid. Afraid to go to sleep? Why so? Is it the boon we all crave for? It is the boon we all crave for. No, if you were like me, if sleep was to you a presage of horror. A presage? Is it presage? Or presage? I think it's presage. A presage of horror? What on earth do you mean? I don't know. Oh, I don't know. And that is what is so terrible. All this weakness comes to me in sleep, until I dread the very thought. But my dear girl, you may sleep tonight. I'm here watching you, and I can promise that nothing will happen. Ah, I can trust you. I seized the opportunity and said, I promise you that if I see any evidence of bad dreams, I will wake you at once. You will? Oh, will you really? Oh, good. Oh, you are good to me. Oh, you are good to me. That I will sleep. And almost as the word she gave a deep sigh of relief and sank back to sleep. All night long I watched by her. She never stirred, but slept on in sleep, tranquil, life-giving, health-giving sleep. Her lips were slightly parted, and her breast rose and fell with the regularity of a pendulum. There was a smile on her face, and it was evident that no bad dreams had come to disturb her peace of mind. Oh, okay. In the early morning, her maid came. Okay, so Dracula did not come, because obviously he was there. But then, man, I hope Van Helsing comes up with like a solution. Poor Lucy. I don't want to read this book and Lucy like passes away. Okay, that's not what I'm here for. Okay, I'm here for happy endings. Oh. In the early morning, her maid came, and I left her in the care and took myself back home, for I was anxious about many things. I sent a short wire to Van Helsing and to Arthur, telling them of the excellent result of the operation. My own work, with its manifold arrears, took me all day to clear off. It was dark when I was able to inquire about my zoophagous patient. The report was good, and he had been quite quiet for the past day and night. A telegram came from Van Helsing at Amsterdam as I was at dinner, suggesting that I should be at Helsing tonight, as it might be well to be at hand, and saying that he was leaving by the night mail and would join me early in the morning. 9th of September. I was pretty tired and worn out when I got to Hillingham? For 2 nights I had hardly had a wink of sleep, and my brain was beginning to feel that numbness which marks cerebral exhaustion. Lucy was up in certain spirits when she shook hands with me. She looked sharply in my face and said, No staying up tonight for you. You're worn out. I'm quite well again. Indeed I am. If there is to be any sitting up, it is I who will sit up with you. I would not argue the point, but went and had my supper. Lucy came with me, and enlivened by her charming presence, I made an excellent meal, and had a couple glasses of the more than excellent port. Then Lucy took me upstairs and showed me a room next to her own, where a cozy fire was burning. Now, she said, you must stay here. I shall leave this door open, and my door too. You can lie on the sofa, for I know that nothing would induce any of you doctors to go to bed whilst there is a patient above the horizon. If I want anything, I shall call out, and you can come to me at once. I could not but acquiesce, for I was dog-tired, and could not have sat up had I tried. So, on her renewing her promise to call me if she should want anything, I lay on the sofa and forgot all about everything. Lucy Westenra's diary, 9th of September. Oh, I feel so happy tonight. I had been so miserably weak, and that to be able to think and move about was like feeling sunshine after a long spell of east wind out of steel sky. Somehow Arthur feels very, very close to me. I seem to feel his presence warm about me. I suppose it is that sickness and weaknesses are selfish things and turn out inner eyes and sympathy on ourselves. With health and strength give love reign, and in thought and feeling he can wander where he wills. I know where my thoughts are, if Arthur only knew. My dear, your ears must tingle as you sleep, as mine do waking. Oh, the blissful rest of that night! How I slept with the dear, good Dr. Seward watching me, and tonight I shall not fear to sleep, since he is close at hand and within call. Thank everybody for being so good to me. Thank God. Good night, Arthur. Dr. Seward's diary, 10th of September. I was conscious of the professor's hand on my back and started awake all in a second. That is one of the things that we learn in asylum, at any rate. And how is your patient? Well, when I left her, rather when she left me, I answered. Come, let us see. Oh, well. Oh, he meant well. Okay. I thought he was like, well. But no, he meant like well as in good. That kind of well. Come, let us see, he said, and together we went to the room. The blind was down, and I went over to raise it gently, with Jen Helsing stepped with a soft cat-like tread over to the bed. As I raised the blind, the morning sunlight flooded the room. I heard the professor's low hiss of inspiration, and knowing its rarity, a deadly fear shot through my heart. As I passed over, he moved back his examination of horror. Gott in Himmel! Needed no enforcement from his agonized face. He raised his hand, pointed to the bed, and his iron face was drawn ashen white. I felt my knees begin to tremble. There on the bed, seen in a swoon, lay poor Lucy, more horribly white and wan-looking than ever. Even the lips were white, and the gums seemed to have shrunken back from the teeth, as we sometimes see in a corpse after a prolonged illness. Van Helsing raised his foot to stamp in anger, but the instinct of his life and all the long years of habit stood to him, and he put it down again softly. Quick, he said, bring the brandy. I flew to the dining room, returned with the decanter. He wetted the poor white lips with it, and together we rubbed palm and wrist and heart. He felt her heart, and after a moment of agonized suspense, said, It is not too late. It beats still but feebly. All of our work is undone. We must begin again. There's no young Arthur here now. I have to call on you yourself this time, friend John. As he spoke, he was dipping into his bag and producing the instruments for transfusion. I had taken off my coat and rolled up my shirt sleeve. There's no possibility of an opiate, just as at present, and no need of one. And so, without a moment's delay, we began the operation. After a time, it did not seem a short time either, for the draining away of one's blood, no matter how willingly it be given, is a terrible feeling. Van Helsing held up a warning finger. Do not stir, he said, but I fear that with growing strength she may wake, and that would make danger. Oh, so much danger. But I shall precaution take. Oop, that's weird phrasing. I shall give hypodermic injection of morphia. He proceeded then swiftly and deftly to carry out his intent. The effect on Lucy was not bad, for the faint seemed to merge subtly with the narcotic sleep. It was with a feeling of personal pride that I could see a faint tinge of color stealing back into the pallid cheeks and lips. No man knows till he experiences it what it is to feel his own lifeblood drawn away into the veins of the woman he loves. The professor watched me critically. That will do, he said. Already? I remonstrated. Took a great deal more from Art. To which he smiled, a sad sort of smile, as he replied, He is her lover, her fiancé. You have work, much work to do for her and for others, and the present will suffice. Man, that felt like a slap in the face. Like, dude, you're not her fiancé. No. And the guy's like, what? He's like, I want to contribute. And Van Helsing's like, no. I just know needles they were using back that were giant, and that had to hurt so bad. Oh man, yeah. They didn't have like the little tiny needles. Back then it was like, the giant needles. Oh goodness. I don't like needles. I look away every time I have to get a shot because I don't like needles. Neither does Lena, but she's better in it than I can. Oh, she has fur, so she doesn't feel it as much. Oh goodness. But yeah, cat, I get you. Yeah, it probably would have hurt a lot. But this guy was happy. He's like, I can give blood to my lover. And Van Helsing's like, no, I'm just gonna give a little bit. Like, the other guy was, like, you know, her husband, so. When we stopped the operation, he turned to Lucy, whilst I applied digital pressure on my own incision. I lay down, whilst I waited his leisure to attend me, for I felt faint and a little sick. By and by, he bound up my wound and sent me downstairs to get a glass of wine for myself. As I was leaving the room, he came after me and half whispered, "Mind, nothing must be said of this. If your young lover should turn up unexpected as before, no word to him. It would at once frighten him and enjealous him, too. There must be none. So." When I came back, he looked at me gratefully and then said, "You are not much the worse. Go into the room and lie on your sofa and rest well, and have much breakfast and come here to me." What kind of a phrasing is that? You are not much the worse? I've never heard phrasing like that. What does that mean? I followed Al's orders, but I knew how right and wise they were. I had done my part, and now my next duty was to keep up my strength. I felt very weak, and in the weakness lost something of amazement at what had occurred. I fell asleep on the sofa, however, wondering over and over again how Lucy had made such a retrograde movement, and how she could have been drained of so much blood with no sign anywhere to show for it. I think I must have continued my wonder in dreams, for sleeping and waking, my thoughts always came back to little punctures in her throat, and ragged, exhausted appearance of her edges, tiny though they were, of their edges. Lucy slept well into the day, and when she woke up she was fairly well and strong, though not nearly as much as the day before. When Van Helsing had seen her, he went out for a walk, leaving me in charge, with strict injunctions I was not to leave her for a moment. I could hear his voice in the hall asking the way to the nearest telegraph office. Lucy chatted with me freely and seemed quite unconscious that anything had happened. I tried to keep her amused and interested. When her mother came up to see her, she did not seem to notice any change whatever, but said to me gratefully, "We owe you so much, Dr. Seward, for all you have done, but you really must now take care not to overwork yourself. You're looking pale yourself. You want a wife to nurse and look after you a bit. That you do," as she spoke. Hello. Hi, Angela. Welcome. Yes, I am reading. Not Van Helsing. I'm sorry, Dracula. Dracula by Bram Stoker. I am on page. Well, it doesn't matter what page I tell y'all. It might be different depending on the edition. Currently, I am on page 146 of chapter 10. So, hi, welcome. Okay, where was I? Oh, as she spoke, Lucy turned crimson, though only momentarily, for her poor wasted vein cannot stand for a long unwanted drain to the head. The reaction came in excessive pallor. Hello, yeah. Pallor. She turned imploring eyes on me. I smiled and nodded and laid my fingers on my lips. With a sigh, she sank back amid her pillows. Van Helsing returned a couple hours and presently said to me, "Now you go home and eat much and drink enough. Make yourself strong. I stay here tonight, and I shall sit up with little miss myself. You and I must watch the case, and we must have none other to know. I have grave reasons. No, do not ask me. Think what you will. Do not fear to think even the most notable. Good night." You're pretty foreign, huh? Well, I'll try to keep... Okay. In the hall, two of the maids came to me and asked if they, or either of them, might not sit up with Miss Lucy. Yeah, we are pretty this is part 4 after all, so I've read the other part. Like, I've read the other chapters in the previous parts. Again, I don't know how far I'm going to get. I do have to leave at 6 for other arrangements, but we'll see how far we can get. Where was I? Oh, right. They implored me to let them be. When I said it was Van Helsing's wish that either he or I should sit up, they asked me quite piteously to intercede with the foreign gentleman. I was much touched by their kindness. Perhaps it is because I am weak at present, and perhaps it was on Lucy's account that their devotion was manifested, for over and over again have I seen similar instances of women's kindness. I got back here in time for a late dinner, went to my rounds, all well, and set this down, waiting for sleep. It is coming. 11th of September. This afternoon, I went over to Hillingham, found Van Helsing in excellent spirits, and Lucy much better. Shortly after I arrived, a big parcel from abroad came from the professor. He opened it with much impressment, assumed, of course, and showed a great bundle of white flowers. "These are for you, Miss Lucy," he said. "For me? Oh, Dr. Van Helsing." "Yes, my dear, but not for you to play with. These are medicines." Here Lucy made a wire face. "Nay, but they are not to take in decoction? Okay, now I'm lyrical listening. Oh, okay, cool. Where was... Oh, or in nauseous form, so you need not snub that that so charming nose, or I shall point out to my friend Arthur that woes he may have to endure in seeing so much beauty that he so loves so much distort. Aha, my pretty miss, that bring the so nice nose all straight again. This is medicinal, but you do not know how. I put him in your window, I make pretty wreath, and hang him around your neck, so you sleep well. Oh yes, they, like the lotus flower, make your trouble forgotten. It smells so like the waters of length, and of the fountain of youth that the conquistadors sought for in Floridas, and find him all too late. Whilst he was speaking, Lucy had been examining the flowers and smelling them. Now she threw them down, saying with a half laughter and half disgust, "Oh, Professor, I believe you are only putting up a joke on me. Why, these flowers is only common garlic." I was gonna say, I was like, wait a minute, isn't garlic what you put around your neck? And he's like, these are flowers. She's like, this is garlic. To my surprise, Van Helsing rose up and said with all of his sternness and iron jaw set, his bushy eyebrows meeting, "No trifling with me, I never jest. This is a grim purpose in all I do, and I warn you that you do not thwart me. Take care, for the sake of others is not for your own." Then seeing poor Lucy scared, as she might well be, he went on more gently. "Oh, little miss, my dear, do not fear me. I only do for your good, but there is much virtue too in those so common flower. See, I place them myself in your room. I make myself the wreath that you are to wear. But hush! No telling to others, that makes no inquisitive questions. We must obey, and silence is part of obedience, and obedience is to bring your strong and well into loving arms that wait for you. Now, sit a while. Come with me, dear friend John, and you shall help me deck the whole room with garlic. With my garlic, okay? Which is all the way from Harlem. My friend Vanderpool raise herb in his glass houses all the year. I had to telegraph yesterday, or they would not have been here. All the year here. It rhymed. We went to the room, taking the flowers with us. The professor's actions were certainly odd, and not to be found in any the hell? Pharmaco. I have not seen that word. I can't imagine some to just not knows garlic, as if it has no smell. I'm kind of confused when he was explaining the smell, because I've smelled garlic. It's not good. Even Lena has like little plastic gloves that she puts on her paws before she cuts garlic. Like we just do not touch garlic. I can't eat it, by the way. As I said, I'm not a normal vampire, so I can't eat garlic. I just choose not to eat it directly, if that makes sense. Like it's good as like I guess to add to a taste, but to directly eat it, I avoid it when possible. I will take it out of my food if need to. That's because I just don't like eating it. I just don't like the taste. And I'm not the only one. My mother does that as well, but my father and brother are fine with it. They can eat it just fine. So can Lena, but I personally don't like eating it. What was it? I can't say that word, but I hope you all could see it if you're reading along. Yeah, that word. That I've ever heard of. First, he fastened up the windows and latched them securely. Next, taking a handful of the flowers, why do they keep calling them flowers? He rubbed them all over the sashes as though to ensure that every whiff of air that might get in would be laden with the garlic smell. Ugh. I'm sorry, it's gross. Then with the wisp he rubbed all over the jamb of the door, above, below, and each side, and round the fireplace in the same way. It all seemed grotesque to me, and presently I said, "Well, Professor, I know you always have a reason for what you do, but this certainly puzzles me. It is well we have no skeptic here, or he would say that you are working some spell to keep out an evil spirit. That is exactly what he is doing, Mr. Seward." Garlic smells so good while being used on cooking, though. Yeah, like, garlic's good for cooking, but to, like, eat it or, like, use it in this manner, I don't think the smell is very good. But yeah, for cooking, it's good. What was it? Never fails to make me hungry. "Perhaps I am," he answered quietly as he began to make the wreath, which Lucy was to wear around her neck. We then waited whilst Lucy made her toilet for the night, and then she was in bed, and he came and himself fixed a wreath of garlic round her neck. The last words he said to her were, "Take care you do not disturb it, and even if the room feel close, do not tonight open the window or the door." "I promise," said Lucy. And thank you both 1,000 times for all your kindness to me. And what have I done to be so blessed with such friends? As we left the house in my fly, which was waiting, Van Helsing said, "Tonight I can sleep in peace, and sleep I want. 2 nights of travel, much reading the day between, and much anxiety on the day to follow, and a night to sit up without to wink. Tomorrow's the morning early you call for me, and we come together to see our pretty miss. So much more strong for my spell, which I have work." Ho ho! He seemed so confident that I, remembering my own confidence 2 nights before, and with the baneful result, felt awe and vague terror. It must have been my weakness that made me hesitate to tell it to my friend, but I felt it all the more like unshed tears. Make her toilet isn't usually made their bed. Oh! I think it was to use the bathroom. Yeah, because they use the term to make your toilet, referring to, I think, like freshen up in the bathroom or something. Right? Kat, do you know that phrase? That's how I understood it when I was reading earlier when Jonathan had arrived at Dracula's castle. He said, "Oh, I went to go make my toilet," or like go make your toilet. I thought it was, is it to prepare your bed? Or was it just to go freshen up in the bathroom? That's what I assumed it was. I could be wrong. But I thought it was freshen up in the bathroom. Okay, chapter 11. Oh, we're on 11 now. Lucy Westenra's diary. 12th of September. How good they're all to me. I quite love that dear Dr. Van Helsing. Yeah, it's old-timey for going to the bathroom. Oh, okay, yeah, it was. Okay. So yeah, Angela's cat said it's a phrase referring to going to the restroom. I don't know why it's phrased like that, but that's what the phrase stands for, from my understanding. And as Kat explained. Thank you, Kat. I wonder why he was so anxious about these flowers. He positively frightened me. He was so fierce, and yet he must have been right. I feel comfortable from them already. Somehow, I do not dread being alone tonight, and I can go to sleep without fear. I shall not mind any flapping outside the window. Oh, the terrible struggle that I have had against sleep so often of late. The pain of sleepiness, or the pain of the fear of sleep, with such unknown horrors as it has for me. How blessed are some people whose lives have no fears, no dreads, to whom a sleep is a blessing that comes nightly, and brings nothing but sweet dreams. Well, here I am tonight, hoping for sleep, and lying like Ophelia in the play, with the virgin cants and maiden stewments. I never liked the garlic before, but tonight is delightful. There is peace in its smell. I feel sleep coming already. Good night, everybody. I kind of assume that too, but Olden tongue never feels confused. I am still very confused. Thankfully, Kat's been here explaining things to me, so I'm very grateful. It's more like, yeah, freshen up, change clothes. If someone says make water, it's, you know, okay. Also, feel free to not respond to every message I send. Oh, okay, no, it's all good. I don't mind. I like talking to chat. It's fun. I'm having a conversation with like others as I'm reading. That's like that's joy for any bookworm. I guarantee it. So do not worry. Dr. Seward's diary, 13th September. Called at the Berkeley and found Van Helsing as unusual up to time. The carriage ordered from the hotel was waiting. The professor took his bag, which he always brings with him now. Let all be put down exactly. Van Helsing and I arrived at the Hillingham at 8 o'clock. It was a lovely morning. The bright sunshine and all the fresh feeling of early autumn seemed like the completion of nature's annual work. The leaves were turning to all kinds of beautiful flowers, but had not yet begun to drop from the trees. When we entered, we met Mrs. Westenra coming out of the morning room. She was always an early riser. She greeted us warmly and said, "You'll be glad to know Lucy is better. The dear child is still asleep." I looked into her room and saw her, but did not go in, lest I should disturb her. The professor smiled and looked quite jubilant. He rubbed his hands together and said, "Aha! I thought I had diagnosed the case. My treatment is working," to which she answered, "You must not take all the credit yourself, doctor. Lucy states this one is due in part to me." I'm kind of scared. Hold on, I'm kind of scared. I've got, wait. What did you do, ma'am? What do you mean, ma'am? Said the professor. Well, I was anxious about the dear child that night and went to her room. She was sleeping soundly, so soundly that even my coming did not wake her. But the room was awfully stuffy. Oh, no! No! Oh, no. What The room was awfully stuffy, and there was a lot of those horrible strong-smelling flies about everyone. She had actually a bunch of them around her neck. I feared that the heavy odor would be too much for the dear child in her weak state, so I took them all away and opened a bit of the window to let in little fresh air. You'll be pleased with her, I am sure. Oh no! Mrs. Westenra, I hope, like, you don't have a heart attack anytime soon. But I think it would have been better if you stayed asleep. Oh my god. If she killed Lucy, I'm gonna lose it. She moved off into her boudoir, where she usually breakfasts early, and she had spoken. I watched Professor's face and saw it turn ashen. He had been able to retain his self-command, which the poor lady was present, for he knew her state and how mischievous a shock would be. He actually smiled on her as he held open the door for her to pass into a room, but the instant she had disappeared, he pulled me, suddenly and forcibly, into the dining room and closed the door. Then, for the first time in my life, I saw Van Helsing break down. He raised his hands over his head in a sort of mute despair and then beat his palms together in a helpless way. Finally, he sat down on a chair, putting his hands before his face, began to sob, with loud, dry sobs that seemed to come from the very racking of his heart. Then he raised his arms again as though appealing to the whole universe. God! 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 He said. What have we done? What has this poor thing done? What are we so sore beset? Is there fate amongst us still sent down from the pagan world of old that such things must be, and in such a way? This poor mother, all unknowing and all for the best as she think, does such a thing as lose her daughter, body and soul, and we must not tell her. We must not even warn her, or she die, and then both die. Oh, how we are beset! How are all the powers of the devils against us! So he jumped to his feet. Come, he said. Come, we will see an act. Devils or no devils, or all the devils at once. It matters not. We fight him all the same. He went to the hall door for his bag, and together we went to Lucy's room. Once again, I drew up the blind, and with Savannah went towards the bed. This time he did not start, as he looked on the poor face with the same awful waxen pallor as before. He wore a stern sadness and infinite pity. As expected, he murmured with hissing inspiration, which meant so much. Without a word, he went and locked the door, and then began to set out the little table, the instruments, yet for another operation of transfusion of blood. I have long ago recognized in a setting and began to take off my coat, but he stopped me with a warning hand. No, he said. Today you must operate. I shall provide. You are weakened already. As he spoke, he took off his coat and rolled up his shirt sleeve. Again the operation. Again the narcotic. Again some return of color to the ashy cheeks and the regular breathing of her healthy sleep. This time I watched with Van Helsing recruit himself and rested. You mean 12 she's not. I know, this was just a mess. I was like, ma'am, I think they should lock the door. I think they should barricade the window and lock the freaking door. Or move. Movie's an option. I think they should just move at this point, honestly. Oh, man. Ah, jeez. Presently, he took an opportunity of telling Mrs. Westenra that she must not remove anything from Lucy's room without consulting him, that the flowers were of medicinal value, and that the breathing of their odor was a part of the system of cure. Then he took over the care of the case himself, saying that he would watch this night and the next and would send me word when to come. After another hour, Lucy waked from her sleep, fresh and bright, seemingly not much the worse for her terrible ordeal. What does it all mean? I'm beginning to wonder if my long habit of life amongst the insane is beginning to tell upon my own brain. Lucy Westenra's diary, 17th of September. 4 days and nights of peace. I'm getting so strong again, I can hardly know myself. No, Lucy, you're not. You're not getting stronger. It is as if I have passed through some long nightmare and had just awakened to see the beautiful sunshine and feel the fresh air of the morning around me. I had a dim half-remembrance of long, anxious times of waiting and fearing, darkness in which there was not even the pain of hope to make present distress more poignant, and then long spells of oblivion and rising back to life as a diver coming up through a great press of water. Since, however, Dr. Van Helsing has been with me, all this bad dreaming seems to have passed anyway. Noises that used to frighten me out of my wits, the flapping against the window, the distant voices which seemed so close to me, and the harsh sound that came from I know not where and command me to do I know not what, have all ceased. I go to bed now without any fear of sleep. I do not even try to keep awake. I've grown quite fond of the garlic, and a box full arrives for me every day from Haarlem. Tonight Dr. Van Helsing is going away, as he's to be for a day in Amsterdam, but I need not be watched. I am well enough to be left alone. Thank God for Mother's sake and dear Arthur's, and for all of our friends who have been so kind. I shall not even feel the change, for last night Dr. Van Helsing slept in his chair all the time. I found him asleep twice when I woke, but I do not fear to go sleep again, although the bouts or bats or something flapped almost angrily against the window pane. Yeah, Dracula. Leave. Leave. Fudge off, Drac. I am pissed at this man. Vampire. Anyways. The Pall Mall Gazette, 18th September. The Escaped Wolf. The perilous adventure of our interviewer. Interviewed the keeper in the zoological gardens. Escaped wolf? Is this the werewolf? Are we talking about the werewolf now? Is that what's happening? After many inquiries, almost as many refusals, and perpetually using the words Pall Mall Gazette as sort of talisman, I managed to find the keeper of the section of the zoological gardens in which the wolf department is included. Thomas Builder lives in one of the cottages in the enclosure behind the elephant house and was just sitting down to his tea when I found him. Thomas and his wife are hospitable folk, elderly and without children, and if the specimen I enjoyed of their hospitality be of the average kind, their lives must be pretty comfortable. The keeper would not enter on what he called business until the supper was over, and we were all satisfied. Then, when the table was cleared and we had lit his pipe, he said, "Now, sir, you can go on and ask me what you want. You'll excuse me refusing to talk of the professional subject afore meals. I gives the wolves and the jackals and the hyenas and all of our section their tea afore I begins to ask them questions." How do you mean asking questions? I queried. Worried. Wish you could get to talkative murmur. And of them more than dead with the poles one way, scratching on their ears is another, when gents as is fledged wants a bit of a show-off to their gals. I don't so much mind the fuss, but the itting with the pole afore I chucks in their dinner, but I waits till they're adding their sherry and coffee, so to speak, afore I tries to go with the ear scratching. Mind you, he added philosophically. And no, I'm not trying to do an accent, I'm just trying to read what the words say, and that's exactly how they're coming out. I hope. There's a deal of the same nature in us as in them. We're animal. He added philosophically. There's a deal of the nature in us and them. They're animalists. Here's you coming and asking for me questions about my business, and I that gruppin' like and all only for your bloomin' and arfquin and the sea blower fuss for. I'd answer. Not even when you ask me sarcastic like if I'd like you to ask the superintendent if you might ask me questions without offense, did I tell you to go to L? You did. And when you said you'd report me for the use of obscene language that was in me before the id, but the arfquid made that all right. I weren't a going to fight, so I waited for the food and did with my owl as the wolves and lions and tigers does. But Laura loving your art, now that the old ooman has stuck a chunk of her tea cake in me and rinsed me out with her bloomin' old teapot, and I've lit up, you may scratch my ear for all you're worth and won't get even a growl out of me. Drive along with your questions, and I know that you're coming and you're coming at this escaped wolf. Okay. What? Okay. Oh man, okay. I'm probably saying a lot of this slur wrong, but I'm doing my best. He's basically saying, I haven't eaten yet and you're coming to bother me? Let me finish eating and then I will answer your questions. Because I don't think the animals would like it if I wanted to ask them questions before they ate. No siree. Basically what he's saying. Exactly. I want you to give me your view of it. Just tell me how it happened, and when I know the facts, I'll get you to say what you consider was the cause of it and how you think the whole affair will end. Alright, Governor. This is about the old story that here wolf that we called Berserker was one of the grey ones that came from nowhere to Jumrax, which we bought him off 4 years ago. He was a nice, well-behaved wolf and never gave no trouble to talk of. I'm more surprised at him for not wanting to get out nor any other animals in the place, but there you can't trust wolves nor women. Oi, what's that supposed to mean? Don't you mind him, sir, broke Mrs. Tom with a cheery laugh. He's got mind in the animals so long that the bless if he ain't like an old wolf itself, but there ain't no armin in him. Ain't no harm in him. Harm. Okay. Well, sir, it was about 2 hours after feeding yesterday when I first hear my disturbance. I was making up a litter with the monkey house for the young puma, which is ill, but when I heard the yelping and owling, I kept away straight. There was Berserker tearing like a mad thing on the bars, as if he had wanted to get out. There wasn't much people about the day, and close at hand was only one man, a tall, thin chap with hook nose and a pointed beard with a few white hairs running through it. He had a hard, cold look and red eyes, and I took a sort of slack to him, for it seemed as if it was him as they irritated at. Ian white kid gloves on his hand, and he pointed out the animals to me and said, "Keeper, these wolves seem upset at something." Yeah, you, Dracula! Jesus. This man, vampire, causing trouble wherever he goes. "Maybe it's you," says I, for I did not like the airs that he was giving itself. He didn't get angry, and I opened that he was, but he sounded a kind of insolent smile with a mouthful of white, sharp teeth. "Oh no, they wouldn't like me," he says. "Oh yes, they would," says I, imitating of him. "They always lack a bone or two to clean their teeth about tea time," which she was a bagful. Well, it was an odd thing, but when the animals see us talking, they lay down. When I went over to the berserker, he let me stroke his ear, same as ever. That there man came over and blessed, but if he didn't put in his hand and stroke the old wolf's ear too. "Take care," says I. "Berserker is quick." "Never mind," he says. "I'm used to him." "Are you in the business yourself?" I says, taking off my hat for a man that trades in wolves and sister is a good friend to keepers. "No," he says, "not exactly in the business, but I have made pets of several." With that, he lifts his hat as a pearlet as a lord and walks away. Old Berserker kept looking at her like him till he was out of the sight, and they went and lay down in the corner and wouldn't come out the whole evening. Well, last night, as soon as the moon was up, the wolves were all up again a howling. There weren't nothing for 'em to howl at. There weren't no one near except someone that was evidently calling a dog somewheres out back of the gardenings in the park road. Once or twice I went out to see that it was all right, and it was, and then the howling stopped. Just before 12 o'clock, I just took a look around, turning in, brust me, but when I came opposite to old Berserker's cage, I see the rails broken, twisted about, and the cage empty, and that's all I know for certain. Did anyone see anything? One of our guards was coming in about time for harmony when he sees a big gray dog coming out through the garden edges. At least so he says, but I don't give much for it myself, for if he didn't ever said a word about it to his missus, then it got him home, and it was only after the escape of the wolf was made known. We had been up all night and hunted out of the park for Berserker. Had he remembered seeing anything, my own belief was at the armory and got into his head. "Now, Mr. Builder, can you account in any way for the escape of the wolf?" "Yes, sir," he said with suspicious sort of modesty. "I think I can, but I don't know as how you be satisfied with the theory." "Certainly I shall, if a man like you, who knows the animals from experience, can't hazard a good guess. At any rate, who is even to try?" "Well then, sir, I account for it in this way. It seems to me that your wolf escaped simply because he wanted to get out." From the hearty way that both Thomas and his wife laughed at the joke, I could see that it had done service before, and that the whole explanation was simply an elaborate sell. I couldn't cope in badinage with the worthy Thomas, but I knew for sure a way to his heart, so I said, "Now, Mr. Builder, we're considering the first half sovereign worked off, and this brother of his was waiting to be claimed when you've told me what you think will happen." "Right you are, sir," he said briskly. "You'll excuse me, I know, for a chaffing of ye, but the old woman here winked at me, which is a must as a telling me to go on." "Well, I never," said the old lady. "My point is this, that the earwolf isn't hidden of somewheres. The gardener what didn't remember say he was galloping northward faster than a horse could go. But I don't believe him, for you see, sir, wolves don't gallop more than a horse does. They not been built that way. Wolves is fine things as storybook, and I just say they gets in packs and does be chiving sometime. That something that more afeared than they as they can make a devil of the noise and chop it up, wherever it is. But Lord bless you, in real life, a wolf is only a little creature, not half so clever as a good dog, and not half a quarter so much as fight in him. This one ain't been used to find, or even to be providing for himself, and more like he's somewhere around the park, hiding and a shivering, and if he thinks of it all, wondering where he is to get his breakfast from, or maybe he's got down some area that is a coal cellar, my eye won't come some cook get a rum start when she sees the green eyes shine at her out of the dark. If he can't get food, he's bound to look for him. Mayhap he may chance to light on a butcher shop in time. If he doesn't, some nursemaid goes a walking off with the soldier, leaving of the infant with the perambulator. Well, then I shouldn't be surprised if the census is one baby the less. That's all. What? Is he saying the dog's gonna eat the baby? What? I guess. Kind of messed up, but okay. I was hiding the half-sovereign when something came bobbing up against the window, and Mr. Builder's eye doubled in Natural's length with surprise. God bless if the ain't old berserker came back by itself! He went to the door and opened it, a most unnecessary proceeding, it seemed to me. I am always thought to have a wild animal look so well as when some obstacle pronounced durability is between us. A personal experience has intensified rather than diminished that idea. After all, however, there's nothing like custom for neither Builder or his wife thought any more of the wolf than I should of a dog. The animal itself was at peace, was peaceful and well behaved as that father of all pictured wolves. Red Riding Hood's condom friend? Condam friend? Was seeking her confidence in masquerade. The whole scene was an unutterable mixture of comedy and pathos. The wicked wolf that for half a day had paralyzed London and set all the children in town shivering in their shoes was there a sort of penitent mood and was received and petted like a sort of Vulcan prodigal son. Old Builder examined him all over with most tender solicitude, and when he had finished with his penitent, said, "There, I knew the poor old chap would get in some kind of trouble, and I did say all along. Here's his head all cut and full of broken glass. It's been a-getting some bloomin' wall of other. It's a shame that people are allowed to top their walls with broken balls. It's here's what comes of it. Come along, berserker." Took the wolf and locked up him in a cage with a piece of meat that satisfied in quantity at any rate the elementary conditions of fatted calf, and went off to report. I came off too to report the only exclusive information that was given today regarding the strange escape at the zoo. Is this the same guy that did the article on the ship too? Okay. I want some more water. Okay. Dr. Seward's Diary, 17th of September. I was enraged after dinner in my study posting up my books, which, through press of other work and many visits to Lucy, had fallen sadly into arrear. Suddenly, the door was burst open, and in rushed in my patient with his face distorted with passion. I was thunderstruck, for such a thing as a patient getting of his own accord into the superintendent's study is almost unknown. Without an instant's pause, he made straight at me. He had a dinner knife in his hand, and as I saw he was dangerous, I tried to keep the tail between us. He was too quick and too strong for me. However, before I could get my balance, he had struck at me and cut my left wrist rather severely. Before he could strike again, however, I got on my right, and he was sprawling on the back of the floor. My wrist bled freely, and quite a little blood trickled to the carpet. I saw my friend was not intent on further effort, and occupied himself binding up my wrist, keeping a wary eye on the prostrate figure all the time. When the attendants rushed in and we turned our attention to him, his employment positively sickened me. He's lying on his belly on the floor, licking up like a dog, the blood which had fallen from my wounded wrist. He's easily secured, and to my surprise, when with the attendants quite passively, simply repeating over and over again, "The blood is the life, the blood is the life." I can't afford to lose blood, just as present I have lost too much of late for my physical good, and then the prolonged strain of Lucy's illness and its horrible phase is telling on me. I am overexcited and weary, and I need rest, rest, rest. Happily Van Helsing has not summoned me, so I need not forego my sleep tonight. I cannot well do without it. Telegram Van Helsing, Antwerp to Seward, Carfax. Send to Carfax, Sussex, as no country given, delivered late by 22 hours. 17th of September. Do not fail to be at Hillingham tonight, if not watching all the time. Frequently visit and see the flowers are as placed. Very important, do not fail. Shall be with you as soon as possible after arrival. Dr. Seward's Diary. 18th of September. Just off for the train to London, the arrival of Van Helsing sound filled me with dismay. A whole night lost, and I know my bitter experience that may happen in a night. Of course, it's possible that all may be well, but what may have happened, surely there is some horrible doom hanging over us at the very possible accident should thwart us in all we tried to do. I shall take this cylinder with me, and then I can complete my entry on Lucy's phonograph. I'm kind of scared. What? It's because, like, the next segment and, like, the next segment says memorandum left by Lucy with Senra. 17 September night. I write this and leave it to be seen so that no one may by any chance get into any trouble through me. It's the exact record of what took place tonight. I feel I'm dying of weakness and have barely strength to write, but must be done if I die in the doing. No, Lucy! Oh, I hope she doesn't die. Like, since it's a memorandum by her, does that mean she did die? I went to bed as usual, taking care that the flowers were placed as Dr. Valentine directed, and soon fell asleep. I was waked by the flapping at the window, which began after the sleepwalking on the cliff at Whitby when Mina saved me, and which now I know so well. I'm not afraid, but I did wish that Dr. Seward was in the next room, and as Dr. Van Helsing said he would be, so I might have called him. I tried to go to sleep, but I could not. Then there came to me the old fear of sleep, and I determined to keep awake. Conversely, sleep would come when I did not want it, so I feared to be alone. I opened my door and called out. Is there anybody there? There's no answer. I was afraid to wake Mother, and so closed my door again. And outside in the shrubbery I heard a sort of howl like a wolf's, more fierce and deeper. I went to the window and looked out, but could see nothing except a big bat, which had evidently been buffering its wings against the window. So I went back to bed, but determined not to go to sleep. Presently the door opened, and Mother looked in, seeing by my moving that I was not asleep, came and sat by me. She said to me even more sweetly and softly than her wont, I was easy about you, darling, and came to see what you were all right. I feared she might catch cold sitting there, and asked her to come in and sleep with me, so she came into the bed and lay down beside me. She did not take off her dressing gown, for she said she would only stay a while, and then go back to her own bed. As she lay there in my arms, and I in hers, the flapping and buffeting came to the window again. She started a little frightened and cried out, What is that? I tried to pacify her as at least succeed, and she lay quiet, but I could hear her poor dear heart still beating terribly. After a while there was a low howl again out in the shrubbery, and shortly after there was a crash at the window, and a lot of broken glass was hurled on the floor. What the fudge? What the fudge? What? Did the wolf break in? The window blind blew back, and with the wind that rushed in and the aperture of the broken panes, there was the head of a gaunt gray wolf. Mother cried out in fright and struggled up into a sitting position and clutched wildly at anything that could help her. Amongst other things, she clutched the wreath of flower that I insisted on my wearing round my neck and tore it away from me. For a second or two she sat up, pointing at the wolf, and there was a strange, horrible gurgling in her throat. Then she fell over as if struck with lightning, and her head hit my forehead and made me dizzy for a moment or two. The room and all around seemed to spin around. I kept my eyes fixed on the window, but the wolf drew its head back, and a whole myriad of little specks seemed to come blowing in through, and the broken window. The wheeling and circling around like the pillar of dust that the traveler describes when there was a simoon in the desert. I tried to stir, but there was some swell upon me, and dear Mother's poor body, which seemed to grow cold already, for her dear heart had ceased to beat, weighed me down, and I remembered no more for a while. The time did not seem long, but very, very awful till I recovered consciousness again. Somewhere near a passing bell was tolling. The dogs all around the neighborhood were howling in our shrubbery. Seemingly just outside, a nightingale was singing. I was dazed and stewed with pain, terror, and weakness, but the sound of the nightingale seemed like the voice of my dead mother come back to comfort me. The sound seemed to have awakened the maids too, for I could hear their bare feet pattering outside my door. I called to them, and they came in, and when they saw what happened and what was lay over me on the bed, they screamed out. So it was that lay over me on the bed, they screamed out. The wind rushed in through the broken window, and the door slammed to. They lifted out the body of my dear mother and laid her, covered up with a sheet, and on the bed after I had got up. They were all so frightened and nervous I directed them to go to the dining room and have each glass of wine. The door flew open for an instant and closed again. The maid shrieked, and they went in a body to the dining room, and I lay what flowers I had on my dear mother's breast. When they were there, I remember what Dr. Van Helsing said and told me, but I didn't like to remove them. Besides, I would have some of the servants to sit up with me now. I was surprised that the maids had not come back. I called them, but got no answer, so I went to the dining room to look for them. My heart sank when I saw what had happened. They all four lay helpless on the floor, breathing heavily. The decanter of sherry on the table half full, but there was a queer, acrid smell about. I was suspicious and examined the decanter. The smell of laudanum and looking on the sideboard, I found that the bottle which Mother's doctor used for did use is empty. What am I to do? What am I to do? I am back in the room with Mother. I cannot leave her, and I am alone, save for the sleeping servants who someone had drugged. Alone with the dead. I dare not go out, for I can hear the low howl of the wolf through the window. The air seems full of specks floating and circling the draught from the window, and the light burned blue and dim. What am I to do? God shield me from the harm this night. I shall hide this paper in my breast, for they shall find it when they come to lay me out. My dear mother gone, it is time that I go too. Goodbye, dear Arthur. If I should not survive this night, God keep you, dear, and God help me. I'm gonna be real. If Lucy dies, I will personally beat up Dracula. I will personally beat him up. No joke. No joke. I will have Lena come armed to the teeth and we will beat him up. That's just horrible. My gosh. Oh no. Like, even all the servants were drugged and her mom passed away. That's just messed up. That is so messed up. Dr. Seward's Diary, 18th of September. I drove at once to Hillingham and arrived early, keeping my cab at the gate. I went up the avenue alone. I knocked gently, rang as quietly as possible, for I feared to disturb Lucy or her mother, and hoped to bring only a servant to the door. Oh, by the way, we're in chapter 12. After a while, finding no response, I knocked and rang again. Still no answer. I cursed the laziness of the servants, and they should lie abed at such an hour. For it was now 10 o'clock, and so rang and knocked again, but more impatiently, and still without response. Hitherto I had blamed only the servants, but now a terrible fear began to assail me. Was this desolation but another link in the chain of doom which seemed drawing tight around us? Was it indeed a house of death, so which I had come too late? I knew the minutes, even seconds of delay, might mean hours of danger to Lucy, if she had had again one of those frightful relapses. I went around the house to try if I could find by chance the entry anywhere. I could find no means of ingress. Every window and door was fastened and locked, and I returned baffled to the porch. As I did so, I heard the rapid pit-pat of a swiftly driven horse's feet. They stopped at the gate, and a few seconds later I met Van Helsing running up the avenue. When he saw me, he gasped out, "Then it was you and just arrived. How is she? Are we too late? Did you not get my telegram?" I answered as quickly and currently as I could that I had only got this telegram early in the morning and had not lost a minute in coming here, and I could not make anyone in the house hear me. He paused and raised his hand and said solemnly, "Then I fear we are too late. God wills be done." With his usual recuperative energy, he went on, "Come, if there is no way open to get in, we must make one. Time is all in all to us now." He ran to the back of the house where there was a kitchen window. The professor took a small surgical saw from his case and, handing it to me, pointed to the iron bar which guarded the window. I attacked them at once and had very soon cut through 3 of them. Then with a long, thin knife, as we pushed the fastening of the sashes and opened the window, I would just broke the window. Like, just punched it. That they did something smart. Okay. There was no one in the kitchen or the servants' room, which were close at hand. We tried all the rooms as they went along, and in the dining room, dimly lit by rays of light through the shutters, found 4 servant women lying on the floor. There was no need to think of them dead, for their stertorous breathing and acrid smell of laudanum in the room left no doubt as to their condition. Van Helsing and I looked at each other, and we moved away as he said, "We can attend to them later." Then we ascended to Lucy's room. For an instant or two we paused at the door to listen, but there was no sound that we could hear. With white faces and trembling hands, we opened the door gently and entered the room. How shall I describe what we saw? On the bed lay 2 women, Lucy and her mother. The latter lay farthest in, and she was covered with a white sheet, the edge of which had been blown back by the draught through the broken window, showing the drawn, white face with a look of terror fixed upon it. By her side lay Lucy with a face white and still more drawn. The flowers which had been around her neck were found upon her mother's bosom, and her throat was bare, showing the 2 little wounds which we had noticed before, but looked horribly white and mangled. Without a word, the professor bent over the bed, his head almost touching poor Lucy's breast. When he gave a quick turn of his head, as one who listens, and leaping to his feet, he cried out to me, "It is not yet too late! Quick, quick, bring the brandy!" Nobody in this book is having a good time. You are so very right, Kat, and I hope things get better. Oh my goodness. I flew downstairs and returned with it, taking care to smell and taste it, lest it too were drugged like the decanter of sherry, which I found on the table. The maids were still breathing, but more restless, and I fancied the narcotic was wearing off. I had not stirred to make sure, but returned to Van Helsing. He rubbed the brandy on on another occasion on her lip and gums and on her wrists and the palms of her hands. He said to me, I can do this, all that can be at present. You go wake those maids, flick them in the face with a wet towel, and flick them hard. Make sure they get heat and fire and a warm bath. This poor soul's nearly as cold as beside her. She will need to be heated before we can do anything more. I went at once and found little difficulty in waking 3 of the women. The 4th was only a young girl, and the drug had evidently affected her more strongly. So I lifted her on the sofa and let her sleep. The others were dazed at first, but remembrance came back to them, and they cried and sobbed in a hysterical manner. I was stern with them, however, and would not let them talk. I told them that one life was bad enough to lose, and that if they delayed, they would sacrifice Miss Lucy. So sobbing and crying, they went about their way, half-clad as they were, and prepared fire and water. Fortunately, the kitchen and boiler fits were still alive, and there was no lack of hot water. We got a bath and carried Lucy as she was and placed her in it. Whilst we were busy chafing her limbs, there was a knock at the hall door. One of the maids ran off, hurried some more clothes, and opened it. Then she returned and whispered to us it was a gentleman who had come with a message from Mr. Homewood. I bade her simply tell him that we must wait, for we could see no one right now. She went away with the message, and engrossed with our work, I clean forgot all about him. I never saw in all my experience the professor work in such deadly earnest. I knew as he knew that it was a stand-up fight with death, and in a pause told him so. He answered me in a way that I do not understand, but with the sternest look in his face could wear. If that were all, I would stop here where we are now and let her fade away into peace, for I see no light in life over her horizon. He went on his work with if possible renewed and more frenzied vigor. Presently we both began to be conscious that the heat was beginning to be of some effect. Lucy's heart beat a trifle more audibly to the stethoscope, and her lungs had perceptible movement. Van Helsing's face almost beamed as we lifted her from the bath and rolled her into the hot sheet to dry her as he said to me, "The first gain is ours. Check to the king." We took Lucy into another room which had by now been prepared and laid her in bed and forced a few droplets of brandy down her throat. I noticed that Van Helsing tied a soft silk handkerchief around her throat. She was still unconscious and was quite as bad as if not worse than we had ever seen her. Van Helsing called in one of the women and told her to stay with her and not to take her eyes off her till we returned, and then beckoned me out of the room. "We must consult as to what is to be done," he said as we descended the stairs. In the hall we opened the dining room door and we passed in. He closed the door carefully behind him. The shutters had been opened, but the blinds were already down with obedience to the etiquette of death which the British women of the lower classes always rigidly observes. The room was, therefore, dimly dark. It was, however, light enough for our purposes. Van Helsing's sternness was somewhat relieved by a look of perplexity. He was evidently torturing his mind about something, so I waited for an instant and he spoke. "What are we to do now? Where are we to turn for help? We must have another transfusion of blood, and that soon, or that poor girl's life won't be worth an hour's purchase. You're exhausted already. I am too exhausted. I fear to trust those women, even if they would have courage to submit. What are we to do for someone who will open his veins for her?" "What's the matter with me, anyhow?" The voice came from the sofa among the room. His tones brought relief and joy to my heart, for there was those of Quincy Morris. Van Helsing started angrily at the first sound, but his face softened, and a glad look came on his eyes, and cried out, "Quincy Morris!" and rushed towards with outstretched hand. "What brought you here?" I cried. Our hands met. "I guess Arch is the cause." He handed me a telegram. "Have not heard from Stuart for 3 days, and am terribly anxious. Cannot leave. Father still in same condition. Send me word how Lucy is. Do not delay. Homewood." "I think I came just in the nick of time. You know, you only have to tell me what to do." Van Helsing strode forward and took his hand, looking him straight in the eyes as he did. "A brave man's blood is the best thing on this earth when a woman is in trouble. You're a man and no mistake. Well, the devil may work against us for all he's worth, but God sends us men when he wants them. When we want them. Good job." Once again, we went through that ghastly operation. I have not the heart to go through with the details. Lucy had got a terrible shock, and it held on her more than before, for though plenty of blood went in her veins, her body did not respond to treatment as well as the other occasions. Her struggle back into life was something frightful to see and hear. However, the action of both heart and lungs improved, and Van Helsing made a subcutaneous injection of morphia as before, and with good effect. Her faint became a profound slumber. The professor watched whilst I went downstairs with Quincy Morris and sent one of the maids to pay off one of the cabmen who were waiting. I left Quincy lying down after having a glass of wine and told the cook to get ready a good breakfast. Then a thought struck me, and I went back to the room where Lucy now was. When I came softly, I found Van Helsing with a sheet of 2 note paper in his hand. He had evidently read it and was thinking over as he sat with his hand on his brow. There was a look of grim satisfaction in his face, as one who has no doubt solved. He handed me the paper, saying only, "It dropped from Lucy's breast when we carried her to the bath." When I read it, I stood looking at the professor, and after a pause asked him, In God's name, what does this all mean? Was she, or is she mad? What sort of horrible danger is it? I was so bewildered that I did not know what to say more. And Helsing put out his hand, took the paper, saying, "Do not trouble about it now. Forget it for the present. You shall know and understand all good time, but it will be later. And now that is what you came to me. You came to me to say." This brought me back to the fact that I was all myself again. "I came to speak out the certificate of death. If we do not act properly and wisely, there may be an inquest, and that paper would have to be produced. I am in hopes that we need to have no inquest, for if we had it, it would surely kill poor Lucy, if nothing else did. I know, and you know, and the other doctor who attended her knows that Mrs. Stenry had disease of heart, and we can certify that she died of it. Let us filter the certificate at once, and I shall take it myself to a registrar and go to the undertaker." "Good, oh my friend Jonathan. Well thought of. Truly, Miss Lucy, if she had sat in the foes that beset her, and at least happy in the friends that love her. 1, 2, 3, I'll open their veins for her, besides one old man. Ah yes, I know, friend Jonathan. I am not blind. I love you all the more for it. Now go." In the hall I met Quincy Morris, with a telegram for Arthur telling him that Miss Twistinner was dead. That Lucy also had been ill, but was now going on better, and that Van Helsing and I were with her. I told him where I was going, and he hurried me out, but as I was going, said, "When you come back, Jack, may I have 2 words with you all to ourselves?" I nodded in reply. And went out. Oh, he asked that. Okay, not Stewart. I found out difficulty about the registration and arranged with the local undertaker to come up in the evening to measure for the coffin and to make arrangements. How far away from the end of chapter 12? Oh, I hear the thunder. Oh, we're not that far. That's like 13 pages. Okay, that's good. I can read 13 pages. If I can read like 250 pages times 3 in a matter of 2 days, I can get through 13 pages. When I got back, Quincy was waiting for me. I told him I would see him as soon as I knew about Lucy, went up to her room. She was still sleeping. The professor seemingly had not moved from his seat at her side. When he was putting his finger to his lips, I gathered that he expected her to wake before long and was afraid of forestalling nature. So I went down to Quincy and took him into the breakfast room, where the blinds were not drawn down, which was a little more cheerful, or rather less cheerless, than the other rooms when we were alone. He said to me, "Jack Seward, I don't want to shove myself anywhere where I have no right to be, but this is no ordinary case. You know I love that girl and I wanted to marry her, but although that's all past and gone, I can't help feeling anxious about her all the time. What is it that's wrong with her? The Dutchman, and a fine old fellow he is, I can see that, said that time you 2 came into the room that you must have another transfusion of blood, and that both you and he were exhausted. Now I know well that you were medical men speaking in camera, and that a man must not expect to know what they consult about in private, but this is no common matter, and whatever it is, I have done my part. Is that not so?" Hi. Is this Canon? It is. Hi, Canon. Welcome. Welcome. Where was I? Hold up. Oh, that's so, I said, and he went on. "I take it that both you and Van Helsing had done already what I did today. Is that not so?" "That's so." "And I guess Art was in it too. When I saw him for 4 days ago look down his own place, he looked queer. I had not seen anything pulled down so quick since I was on the Pampas, and I had a mate that I was fond of go to grass all in a night. One of those big bats that they call vampires had got on her in that night, and with the gorge and the vein left open, there wasn't enough blood in her to let her stand up, and I had to pull a bullet through her as she lay. Jack, if you may tell me without betraying confidence, Arthur was the first. Is not that so?" "Is not that so?" As he spoke of, the poor fellow looked terribly anxious. He was in a torture of suspense regarding the woman he loved, and his utter ignorance of the terrible mystery which seemed to be surrounded her intensified his pain. His very heart was bleeding, and it took all the manhood of him, and there was a royal lot of it, too, to keep him from breaking down. I paused before answering, for I felt that I must not betray anything which the professor wished kept secret, but already he knew so much, and guessed so much, that therefore there'd be no reason for not answering. So I answered in the same phrase. "That's so." "Hi, Benz." "And how long has it been going on?" "About 10 days. 10 days? Then I guess Jack Seward, that the poor pretty creature that we all love that has put into her veins without that time the blood of 4 strong men. Man alive, her whole body wouldn't hold it." Then coming close to me, he spoke in a fierce half-whisper. "What took it out?" I shook my head. "That," I said, "is the crux. Van Helsing is simply frantic about it, and I am at my wit's end. I can't even hazard a guess that there has been a series of little circumstances which have thrown out all of our calculations as to Lucy being properly watched, but these shall not occur again. Here we stay until all be well or ill. Quincy held out his hand. Count me in, he said. You and the Dutchman will tell me what to do and I'll do it. Good job, Quincy. Like, I felt bad that she kind of rejected everybody, but also I'm really glad that, like, she ended up leaving on such good terms with her friends that they're like, oh, I still love her, but like I'm going to respect her wishes, but also I want to help her out. And it's like that's really sweet. That's not common anymore, obviously, but it's a very sweet gesture that they're like, let's band together and help out our friend. It's like, oh my gosh, that's adorable. This sounds like a really good plot for any reverse harem anime or an otome game. Unfortunately, most vampire ultimate games do not end up well, and everyone usually hates the main heroine or use her as a food bank. Such potential. Anyways. When she woke late into the afternoon, Lucy's first movement was to feel in her breast, and to my surprise, produced the paper which Van Helsing had given me to read. The careful presser had replaced it where it had come from, lest on waking she should be alarmed. Her eyes then lit on Van Helsing and onto me too, and gladdened. As she looked around the room, seeing where she was, and shuddered, she gave a loud cry and put her poor thin hands before her pale face. Both understood what had meant, that she had realized to the full her mother's death, so we tried what we could to comfort her. Doubtless sympathy eased her somewhat, but she was very low in the thought and spirit, and wept silently and weakly for a long time. We told her that either or both of us would now remain with her all the time, and that seemed a comfort to her. Towards dusk, she fell into a doze. Here, a very odd thing occurred. While still sleeping, she took the paper from her breast and tore it into two. Van Helsing stepped over and took the pieces from her. All the same, however, she went on with the action of tearing, as though the material were still in her hands. Finally, she lifted her hands and opened them as though scattering the fragments. Van Helsing seemed surprised, and it was his brows gathering up in thought, but he said nothing. Was Dracula trying to erase the evidence? They already read it, though. Did he not think people would show up in the morning? I thought this man was smart. Guess not. Just kidding. Hey, I don't care if he's an older vampire. I will gladly kick his butt, okay? Modern vampires are very strong. Do not underestimate. Or my cat. She's awesome. No, really, like Lena's really scary when she wants to be. She's eaten like a ton of ghosts, and some of them were quite strong, either physically or like spiritually, but she defeated them nonetheless, so I put all my faith in Lena and my physical strength. 9th of September. All last night she slept fitfully, being always afraid to sleep, and something weaker when she woke from it. The professor and I took turns to watch, and we never left her for a moment unattended. Quincy Morris said nothing about his intention, but I knew that all night long he patrolled round and round the house. When the day came, its searching light showed the ravages in poor Lucy's strength. She was hardly able to turn her head, and the little nourishment which she could take seemed to do her no good. At times she slept, and both Van Helsing and I noticed the difference in her between sleeping and waking. With asleep, she looked strong, although more haggard, and her breathing was softer. Her open mouth showed the pale gums drawn back from her teeth, which thus looked positively longer and sharper than usual. Wait. Did Dracula change her into a vampire? Oh my gosh. I guess we'll find out. Okay. When she woke, the sauce of her eyes evidently changed the expression, for she looked her own self, although a dying one. And in the afternoon she asked for Arthur, and we telegraphed for him. Quincy went off to meet him at the station. When he arrived, it was nearly 6 o'clock, and the sun was setting full and warm, and the red light streamed in through the window and gave more color to the pale cheeks. When he saw her, Arthur was simply choked with emotion, and none of us could speak. In the hours that had passed, the fits of sleep or the comatose condition had passed, for it had grown more frequent, so that the pauses in conversation with Apostle were shortened. Arthur's presence, however, seemed to act as a stimulant. She rallied a little and spoke to him more brightly as she had done since we arrived. He too pulled himself together and spoke as cheerily as he could, so that the best was made for everything. It is now nearly 1 o'clock, and he and Van Helsing are sitting with her. I'm relieved to them in a quarter of an hour, and I am entering this on Lucy's phonograph. Until 6 o'clock, they are to try to rest. I fear that tomorrow will end our watching, for the shock has been too great. The poor child cannot rally. God help us all. Yeah, Victoria. Oh, okay. Have fun at work. I hope your day goes well. And for anybody else that has work today, hope it goes well. Okay, letter. Mina Harker to Lucy Westenra. Unopened by her. 17th of September. I need water for this. Hold on. I do like a really soft voice for Mina. And my throat is so scratchy right now. I don't think I can do it. Okay. See if I remember Lucy's, like, Mina's voice. Oops. My phone's done charging. Okay. Ahem. My dearest Lucy, it seems an age since I heard from you, or indeed since I wrote. You'll pardon me, I know for all my faults when you have read all my budget of news. Well, I got my husband back all right. When we arrived at Exeter, there was a carriage waiting for us, and in it, though he had an attack of gout, Mr. Hawkins, he took us to his house, where there were rooms for us all nice and comfortable, and we dined together. After dinner, Mr. Hawkins said, My dears, I want to drink your health and prosperity, and may every blessing attend you both. I know you both from children, and have with love and pride seen you grow up. Now I want you to make your home here with me. I have left to me neither chick nor child, all are gone, and in my will I have left you everything. I cried. Lucy dear, as Jonathan and the old man clasped hands, our evening was a very, very happy one. So here we are, installed in this beautiful old house, and from both my bedroom and drawing room I can see the great elms of the cathedral close, with their great black stems standing out against the old yellow stone of the cathedral, and I can hear the rooks overheard cawing and chattering and gossiping all day, here after the manner of rooks and humans. I'm busy, I need not tell you, arranging things and housekeeping. Jonathan and Mr. Hawkins are busy all day, for now that Jonathan is a partner, Mr. Hawkins wants to tell him all about the clients. How's your dear mother getting on? I wish I could run up to town for a day or two to see you, dear, but I dare not go yet. So much on my shoulders, and Jonathan wants looking after still. He's beginning to put on some flesh on his bones again, but he was terribly weakened by the long illness. Even now he sometimes starts out of his sleep in a sudden way and awakens, all trembling, until I can coax him back to his usual placidity. However, thank God, these occasions grow less frequent as the days go on, and they will in time pass away altogether, I trust. And I have told you my news. Let me ask yours. When are you to be married, and where, and who is to perform the ceremony? And what are you to wear, and what is to be public or private wedding? Tell me all about it, dear. Tell me all about everything, for there is nothing which interests you which will not be dear to me. Jonathan asked me to send this respectful duty, but I do not think that is good enough from the junior partner of the important firm of Hawkins and Harker. And so, as you love me, and he loves me, and I love you with all the moods and tenses of the verb, I send you simply his love instead. Goodbye, my dearest Lucy, and all blessings to you. Yours, Mina Harker. Report from Patrick Hennessy, M.D., MRCS, LKQ, CPI, etc., to John Seward, M.D. 20th of September. My dear sir, in accordance with your wishes, I enclose a report of the conditions of everything left in my charge. With regard to patient Renfield, there is more to say. He has had another outbreak which might have had a dreadful ending, but which is fortunately happened was unattended with any unhappy results. This afternoon, a carrier's cart with 2 men made a call at the empty house whose grounds abut on ours, the house in which you all remember the patient twice ran away. The men stopped at our gate to ask the porter their way, as they were strangers. I was myself looking out of the study window, having a smoke after dinner, and saw one of them coming up to the house. As he passed the window of Renfield's room, the patient began to rate him from within, and called him all the foul names he could lay his tongue to. The man, who seemed a decent fellow enough, contented himself by telling him to shut up for a foul-mouthed beggar. Wherein our man accused him of robbing him and wanting to murder him, and said that he would hinder him if he were to swing for it. I opened the window and signed to the man not to know, so he contented himself rather looking the place over and making up his mind as to what kind of place he had gone to by saying, Lord bless you, sir, I wouldn't mind that what was said to me in the bloomin' madhouse. I pity ye and the governor for having to live in the house with a wild beast like that. Then he asked his way civilly enough, and I told him where the gate of the empty houses was. He went away, followed by threats and curses and revelings from our man. I went down to see if I can make out any cause for his anger, since he is usually such a well-behaved man, and, except his violent fits, nothing of the kind had ever occurred. I found him, to my astonishment, quite composed and not Juno in his manner. I tried to get him to talk of the incident, but he blandly asked me questions as to what I meant, and led me to believe that he was completely oblivious of the affair. It was, I am sorry to say, however, only another instance of his cunning, for within half an hour I heard him again. This time he had broken out through the window of his room and was running down the avenue. I called out to the attendants to follow me and ran after him, for I feared he was intent on some mischief. My fear was justified when I saw the same cart which had passed before coming down the road, having on it some great wooden boxes. The men were wiping their foreheads and were flushed with the face as if with violent exercise. Before I could get up to him, the patient rushed at them, pulling one of them off the cart, and began to knock his head. Oh my gosh! What the heck? Gonna knock his head against the ground! Oh my god. Are you eating Cheetos and Reese's? I haven't tried that combination before. That sounds interesting. Huh. Well, I hope you're enjoying those Doritos and Reese's. Began to knock his head against the ground. If I had not seized him by it that moment, I believe he would have killed the man there and then. The other fellow jumped down and struck him over the head with the butt end of his heavy whip. It was a horrible blow, but he did not seem to mind it, but seized him also and struggled the three of us, pulling us to and fro as if we were kittens. You know, I'm no lightweight, and the others were both burly men. At first, he was silent in his fighting, but as we began to master him, the attendants were putting a straight waistcoat on him and began to shout. I'll frustrate them. They shan't rob me. They shan't murder me by inches. I'll fight them for my lord and master. And all sorts of similar incoherent ravings. It was with very considerable difficulty that we got to him back to the house and put him in the padded room. One of the attendants, Hardy, had a broken finger. However, I set it all right, and he's going on well. The two carriers were at first loud in their threats of actions for damages and promised to train all the penalties of the law on us. The threats were, however, mingled with some sort of indirect apology for the defeat of the two of them by a feeble madman. They said that if it had not been for the way their strength had been spent in carrying and raising the heavy boxes on the cart, they would have made short work of him. They gave us another reason for their defeat, the extraordinary state of drought to which they had been reduced by the dusty nature of their occupation, and the reprehensible distance from the scene of their labors of any place of public entertainment. I quite understand their drift, and after a stiff glass of strong grog, or rather more of the same, and with each sovereign in hand, they made light of the attack, and swore that they would encounter a worse madman any day for the pleasure of meeting so blue and a good bloke as your correspondent. I took their names and addresses in case they might be needed. These are the fellows Jack Smollett of the Duddings Rents, King George Road, Great Walworth, and Thomas Snelling, Peter Parley's Row, Guide Court, Bethnal Green. They are both in the company of Harris & Sons, Moving the Shipment Company, Orange Masters Yard, Soho. I shall report to you at any matter of interest occurring here, and shall worry at once if there is another of importance. Believe me, dear sir, yours faithfully, Patrick Hennessy. Letter, Mina Harker to Lucy Senra. Unopened by her. And you say because I have tried both before, it's not good. Ooh! Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. I will trust your words and never try that combination then. Actually, I'm not a fan of Doritos, believe it or not. Unless it's with sour cream, I will eat the Doritos. Reese's Pieces, on the other hand, oh man, I love Reese's Pieces. So delicious. Okay. So this is Mina again. 18th of September. Let me drink some more water. Okay. Oops. There we go. 18th of September. My dearest Lucy, such a sad blow has befallen us. Mr. Harker has died very suddenly. Some might not think it so sad for us, but we had both come to love him that it really seems as though we had lost a father. I never knew either father or mother, so that the dear old man's death is a real blow to me. Jonathan is greatly distressed, and it is not only that he feels sorrow, deep sorrow for the dear, good man who has befriended him in all of his life, and now at the end has treated him like his own son and left him a fortune which to people of our modest upbringing is wealth beyond the dream of avarice. But Jonathan feels it on another account. He says the amount of responsibility which it puts upon him makes him nervous. He begins to doubt himself. I try to cheer him up, and my belief in him helps him to have a belief in himself. But it is here that the grave shock that he experienced tells upon him most. Oh, it is too hard that a sweet, simple, noble, strong nature such as his, a nature which enabled him by our dear good friend's aid to rise from clerk to master in a few years, should be so injured that the very essence of its strength is gone. Forgive me, dear, if I worry you with my troubles in the midst of your own happiness. But Lucy, dear, I must tell someone, for the strain of keeping up a brave and cheerful appearance to Jonathan tires me. And I have no one here that I can confide in. I dread coming up to London, as we must do the day after tomorrow, for poor Mr. Hawkins left in his will that he was to be buried in the grave with his father. As there are no relations at all, Jonathan will have to be chief mourner. I shall try to run over to see you, dears, if only for a few minutes. Forgive me for troubling you with all blessings. Your loving Mina Harker. Dr. Seward's Diary, 20th of September. Only resolution habit can let me make an entry tonight. I am too miserable, too low-spirited, too sick of the world and all in it, including life itself, that I would not care if I heard this moment the flapping of the wings of the angel of death, and he has been flapping those wings to some purpose of late, Lucy's mother and Arthur's father, and now let me get on with my work. I duly relieved Van Helsing in his watch over Lucy. We want Arthur to go rest also, but he refuses at first. It was only when I told him that we should want him to help us during the day, and that we must not all break down for the want of rest, lest Lucy should suffer, and he agreed to go. Van Helsing was very kind to him. Come, my child, he said. Come with me. You are sick and weak and have had much sorrow and much mental pain, as well as the tax on your strength that we know of. You must not be alone, for to be alone is to be full of fears and alarms. Come to the drawing-room where there is a big fire and there are 2 sofas. You shall lie on one and I on the other, and our sympathy will be comfort to each other, even though we do not speak, and even if we sleep. Arthur went off with him, casting back a longing look at Lucy's face, which lay on her pillow almost withered than the lawn. She lay quite still, and I looked around the room to see what all was it should be. I could see that the professor had carried out in his room his purpose of using the garlic. The whole of the window sash reeked with it, and round Lucy's neck, over the silk handkerchief which Van Helsing made her keep on, was a rough chaplet of same odorous flowers. Lucy was breathing somewhat stertorously, and her face was at its worst, for the open mouth showed the pale gums. Her teeth in the dim, uncertain light seemed longer and sharper than they had been in the morning. In particular, by some trick of the light, the canine teeth looked longer and sharper than the rest. I sat down by her, and presently she moved uneasily. At the same moment, there was some sort of dull flapping or buffing at the window. I went over to it softly and peered out by the corner of the blind. There was a full moon, and I can see the noise was made by a great bat, which wheeled around, doubtless attracted by the light, although so dim, and every now and again shook the window with its wings. When I came back to my seat, I found Lucy had moved slightly and had torn away the garlic flowers from her throat. I replaced them as well as I could and sat watching her. Presently she woke, and I gave her food, as Van Helsing had prescribed. She took but a little, and that languidly. There did not seem to be with her now the unconscious struggle for life and strength that had hitherto so marked her illness. It struck me as curious that the moment she became conscious, she pressed the garlic flower close to her. It was certainly odd that whenever she got into that lethargic state with the stertorous breathing, she put the flowers from her, but that when she waked with the clutch them close. There was no possibility for making a mistake about this, for in the long hours that followed she had many spells of sleeping and waking, and repeated both actions many times. At 6 o'clock Van Helsing came to relieve me. Arthur had then fallen into a doze, and he mercifully let him sleep on. When he saw Lucy's face, I could hear the hissing and draw of his breath, and he said to me in a sharp whisper, "Drop the blind, I want light." Then he bent down, with his face also touching, examining her carefully. He removed the flowers and lifted the silk handkerchief from her throat. As he did, he started back, and I could hear him his ejaculation, "Mein Gott!" as it was smothering his throat. I bent over and looked, too, and I noticed some queer chill come over me. The wounds on the throat had absolutely disappeared. For fully 5 minutes, Van Helsing stood looking at her, with his face as its sternest, and he turned to me and said calmly, "She is dying. It will not be long now. It will be much different, mark me, whether she dies conscious or in her sleep. Wake that poor boy up and let him come and see the lass. He trusts us, and we have promised him." I went to the dining room and waked him. He was dazed for a moment, but when he saw the sunlight streaming through the edges of the shutters, he thought he was late and expressed his fear. I assured him that Lucy was still asleep, but told him that as gently as I could that both Van Helsing and I feared that the end was near. He covered his face with his hands and slid down on his knees by the sofa, where he remained perhaps a minute with his hands buried, praying with his shoulders shook with grief. I took him by the hand and raised him up. "Come," I said. "My dear old fellows, summon all your fortitude, and it will be best and easiest for her." Now I'm pissed off. I am pissed off that Lucy is dying. This is monstrous. This is horrible. Dracula deserves to be punched in the face. I will be doing the punching in the face too. I'm sad that Lucy, she was just bubbly and just wanted a good life, and she was so friendly with everyone, and she was gonna get married, and her and Mina were gonna be besties, and just Dracula ruined it. He ruined it, and now I'm upset. When he came into Lucy's room, I can see how Van Helsing had, with his usual foresight, been putting matters straight and making everything look as pleasing as possible. He had even brushed Lucy's hair so that it lay on the pillow as its usual shiny ripples. When we came to the room, she opened her eyes and, seeing him, whispered softly, "Arthur, oh my love, I'm so glad you came." He was stooping to kiss her when Van Helsing motioned him back. "No," he whispered, "not yet. Hold her hand, it will comfort her more." So Arthur took her hand and knelt beside her, and she looked her best, with all the soft lines matching the angelic beauty of her eyes. Then gradually her eyes closed, and she sank to sleep. For a little bit her breast heaved softly, and her breath came and went like a tired child's. And then insensibly there came the strange change which I had noticed in the night. Her breathing grew stertorous, the mouth open, the pale gums, drawn back, made the teeth look longer and sharper than ever. In a sort of sleepwalking, vague, unconscious way she opened her eyes, which were now dull and hard at once, and said in a soft, voluptuous voice, such I had never heard from her lips, "Oh, Arthur, my love, I'm so glad you have come. Kiss me." Arthur bent eagerly over her kiss, but in that instant Antonia, who like me had been startled by her voice, swooped upon him, catching him by the neck with both hands, dragged him back with fury of strength, which I never thought he could have possessed, and actually hurled him almost across the room. Jesus! So she did become a vet. Lucy, no! I'm so sad now. Arthur was so taken aback that he did not for a moment know what to do or say, and before any impulse of violence could seize him, he realized the place and the occasion. He stood silent, waiting. I kept my eyes fixed on Lucy, as did Van Helsing, and we saw a spasm of rage flit in the shadow over her face, the sharp teeth clamped together, and her eyes closed, and she breathed heavily. Fairly shortly after she opened her eyes in all her softness, and putting on her poor pale thin hand, took Van Helsing's great brown one, drawing it to her, and she kissed it. "My true friend," she said in a faint voice with unintelligible pathos. "My true friend and his. Oh, guard him and give him peace." "I swear it," he said solemnly, kneeling beside her and holding up his hand as one who registers an oath. And he turned to Arthur and said to him, "Come, my child, take her hand in yours and kiss her on the forehead, and only once." Their eyes met instead of their lips, and so they parted. Lucy's eyes closed, and Van Helsing, who had been watching closely, took Arthur's arm and drew him away. And then Lucy's breathing became stertorous again, and all at once ceased. "It is all over! She is dead!" I took Arthur by the arm and led him away to the drawing room, where he sat down, covered his face with his hands, sobbing in a way that nearly broke me down to see. Oops. That was my alarm. That was my... Oh, I forgot about that. Okay, gotta finish reading. That alarm was reminding me to buy something. Okay. I went back to the room and found Van Helsing look at poor Lucy, and his face was sterner than ever. Some change had come over her body. Death had given back part of her beauty, for her brow and cheeks had recovered some of their flowing lines. When the lips had lost their deadly pallor, it was as if the blood, no longer needed for the working of the heart, had gone to make the harshness of death as little rude as might be. We thought her dying when she slept, and sleeping when she died. I stood beside Van Helsing and said, "Ah, well, poor girl, there is peace for her at last. It is the end." He turned to me and said with gravely solemnly, "Not so, at last, not so. It is only the beginning." When I asked him what he meant, he only shook his head and answered, "We can do nothing as of yet. Wait and see." Dun dun dun. That is the end of chapter 12. Woo! All right. That is... Oh no! I just realized I didn't have my book! Oh no! Oh, I just did that whole stream without my book. Oops. Oh my gosh. I know, so much. I'm really upset. I'm really upset he changed Lucy. That man. Gonna beat him up if he shows up at my doorstep. Anyways. I forgot my book. Guys, I have a Dracula book. I was reading from the book, I swear. I just forgot. Ah! I feel bad. That's okay. Oh, well, that's okay. I'll put it on next time. I'm gonna remember. I'm just gonna have it open next time. Oops. Oh. Darn mouse doesn't want to work. Anyways, that is all for today's reading stream. I think we're halfway through the book now. Yes! Well, almost. Like, kind of reaching the halfway. We're significantly closer to the halfway. Where's the next Pokemon stream? Okay, so any Pokemon games that I do are only gonna be streamed on Thursday. I think Thursday is just like a really good place and really good time for me to do that. So any Pokemon stream will be on Thursday. If you want to see any of my stream schedule, since I cannot do any community posts due to YouTube's like regulations and like requirements, I can't do community posts. But if you want to see my schedule, it is available on my Twitter. So I will be playing Pokemon Thursday. Have fun rest of the night. Awesome, thank you, Kat. You too. I hope everybody has a good rest of the night, and, well, I hope you have a good rest of the morning, afternoon, or evening in whichever part of the world you're in. So thank you so much for joining me, everybody. I really, really appreciate it. Anyways, I have to go now. Okay. Bye, everybody. Thank you for joining me. Bye-bye. Oh, the music. Hold on. Let me put the music back on. There we go. Okay, bye.